Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome back to the RENNSPORT Community League here today, round 3 at Jeddah. And of course I'm not alone here today because I'm joined by my lovely compatriot, companion, whatever, Tim Ireland.
Hello Lino, hello everyone on Twitch. Hi everyone, how are you doing?
Yeah, today racing under the lights here at Jeddah, and I think it will be very interesting indeed, right?
Yeah, it's I think we've grown to love Jeddah. I know I have since we added it to the game. I was a bit unsure about it to begin with, but it always seems to show some pretty great GT3 racing. So that's what we've got today, and it should be a good one.
It indeed should, and yeah, we got some interesting names on the grid. We also got some interesting missing names, so it could be, well, quite interesting for the championship picture. But let's have a look at what we actually have here as we see the people going out in qualifying. Yeah, what do you think? What do you expect here today from the drivers, from the different cars especially? I've seen we've got quite the variety.
Yeah, we've got a bit more of a mix of cars than we have done recently, so that's always a good thing. And we've got some names you recognise, some names you maybe won't. Some fairly regular competitors I hear at our community events showing up. A couple of people getting drive-throughs, so I wonder if they got a speeding in the pit lane.
Well, an easy mistake to make.
To clear them off now.
Sure, don't want to be doing that. Alizar out in the AMG, back in the MSI livery. See what his first sector does. It's the first sector of anybody pretty much. You of course have some times on the board, but those are on the outlap. It's a 45.8 out of the first sector. AMG's
it's a pretty good first sector time. Sorry, I interrupted you.
AMG could be very strong here today. Will be very interesting to see because we have Alizar and David Sobrero, of course, driving for them. You may have noticed the names earlier this week.
Yeah, got another AMG right next to David Sobrero on track there. That's Marcel Volbracht, who had a bit of an incident earlier on, so his AMG's got a bit of damage on it, I believe. Or is that Danny Hall?
I think it was Danny Hall.
Fair enough. We're both driving the same car. Ugh, get with the program, guys.
Beautiful livery here for Kimi Harpala in the 911 and 992. It's a new one, and I really like to see that one. It looks very wild. And also with the purple sector on, it does look good for the Porsche driver, which ironically owns a BMW, or really likes this BMW in real life.
He does like to talk about his BMW. But I'm not sure he'd like to sim race it around Jeddah.
Well, let's have a look what the lap times say. Kimi Harpala across the line. It's a 202.925. What's it updates? We'll update in just a moment. Could have been invalid indeed. So not a valid lap time here for him right now. Current pole position goes to Schwego with a 202.926 without a cut this time.
Yeah, very close together times there. Unfortunately, doesn't seem to have been valid for Kimi, but that would have been a very impressive steal of pole position. But Enrico Breininger currently a couple of tenths ahead of Alizar here, who can maybe sneak a little bit more. And of course, David Sobrero who seems to be chucking his AMG around with wild abandon.
Well, purple sector 1 pole position for this man wouldn't be the biggest surprise here. But yeah, of course, he has to get a clean lap in first. Being fast is one thing, keeping it in track bounce is the other, but you can see he's using every single bit of the track, not leaving anything on the table. But with...
Yeah, unfortunately, you did invalidate it earlier on, so I don't know if he's going to be abandoning this one for the next lap.
That, of course, would be interesting. David Sobrero currently third in the championship, but our championship leader and our second place driver both not here today. So let's have a quick look at the championship standings. These look as follows. Mark Hewitt on P1 with 39 points in front of Dominic Lalo with 36 points. Then it's David Sobrero, so he could really take the championship lead with quite some points to spare, as he is readying up for another lap. Then we have Luciano Icazo, who also isn't here today, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, Philip Rossler, Robin Blanco with great performances last time. Also not here, Kimi Harpler, next one in line. So today in Jeddah could be a bit of a point swing for some of the drivers lower down. Cesco Monreal also in there, Shuigo in P10, Alizai in P12, and I think all of them are contenders for the victory here today.
Yeah, for sure. The lap times at the top of the table pretty close right now. Kimi Harpler, he's a little bit quicker than either of the first two positions. He just doesn't seem to be able to keep it within track limits as he comes round the last corner, I think. He's still looking good at the minute. He's still on a valid lap. He's nowhere near the last corner. What am I talking about?
Bit of a different end of the circuit, but yeah, it's interesting that both he and David Sobrero did not set a valid lap yet. Carsten Hermann car back in the beautiful Aston Martin AMR livery. Currently in P7. Krystall in the BMW in 6th. He's new to RCL. Danny Hall, same story, but in the AMG. And in between them, Julian Chicot back in the Katowice BMW. And indeed, it's an Aston Martin that isn't driven by Enrico, who's now coming across the line. Let's see what he can put on the board. Can he dethrone Alizé? And yes, he can, by about a 10th of a second. So he takes pole again. Can Alizé answer that? Very slow in the first sector. He will have one more lap. Kimi Harpler going quickest now with the 202.2.
Yeah, Kimi's been getting quicker and quicker as this session goes on, and finally threw in a valid lap. Really kind of sticking it to the guys at the front there, with nearly half a second ahead.
David Sobrero now with the 201.5, so very late in the session, but better late than never. That will be 3 points to his name, unless somebody can dethrone it. But dethroning an esports driver, not the easiest task.
No, Kimi's already called it a day and gone to the box, so it's not going to be him. That's for sure.
Now coming towards the very long left-hander here at the back end of the circuit. It's a tricky corner, but I think it's a very rewarding one.
Yeah, not the greatest start to the lap for Ali Zahir. He's done a 45.7 on his first sector, which isn't bad, but it's definitely not kind of the same Sector 1 pace as Kimi or David Sobrero have been doing.
If he can get into P3, I think that would be quite a good position for him, but I think he just invalidated his lap by going too far over the curb there.
He did, yeah, which was unfortunate because he had got a best sector time, but Ali calling it a day and also going to the pits.
Julian Chico and Enrico Bräuning are the last two cars, I think, to come across the line. Let's see what they can do. Now improvement for Julian Chico, same for Enrico Bräuning. Huh? And I think with that we have our results in from the session. So we're just waiting for the results to come in. But it looks like a David Sobrero pole position here at Jeddah. Do you think he will take it easy into turn 1 or try to get away as fast as possible?
I think he's going to want to get as much space between him and the other cars as possible. But turn 1 at Jeddah, we all know it can be a bit treacherous. So I'm sure he'll want as much clean air between him and the next car as he can make.
Well, the 3 points are safe to his name. 45 minutes on this track. We've seen lots of action before. We've seen very interesting race progressions, to say the least. So I'm curious to see what this one can do. Can hear in the background some donuts done by Julian Chico and Enrico Bräuning are trying for the session to finish because there's still, as it seems, one guy out on track. As the session has just concluded. But Kimi Harpler in the Porsche alongside David Sobrero on the starting grid, that could be very interesting.
Yeah, the Porsches are pretty good at getting away from a standing start. Maybe a bit more so than the AMG is. So could be advantage Harpler coming into T1, but I'm sure we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, we will find out very soon. It is a rolling start, so not something that currently is being done a lot. Could be very interesting. We get rolling here with 13 cars. But of course on a rolling start, advantage for the Porsche isn't as big.
That's true, yeah.
So I'm very curious to see what David Sobrero is doing in terms of mind games. We will resume with footage in just a second. As we get along the final turn, the safety car is pulling into the pit lane. It's a very colorful mix of cars as well.
Yeah, it's always good to have a variety of cars. I'm liking the number of liveries we've got on display here.
You can see the red lights are on. A lot of red lights here at Jeddah. And we go racing at Jeddah, and it hasn't been a good getaway for Kimi Harpler, who is immediately dropping positions and now is being bump drafted a bit by Julian Chico, but it's David Sobrero leading down to turn 1. Enrico Bräuning on the inside. David Sobrero going for the very late dive. Alizar already up into third, and Kimi Harpler spun around, dropping all the way down to P12. So there seems to be a bit more drama further back. Good getaway though at the front for David Sobrero and Schwego. Keep it in first and second position.
Yeah, Kimi all the way back in 11th now, just behind Jestu Manera, so he's got a lot of work to do, a lot of ground to make up. But he seems to be pretty on it straight away. His car doesn't seem to be in too many problems. I can't see any damage really. So I think he somehow managed to avoid everyone at the T1 problems.
It will be a long climb though, because now he's behind Carsten Herrmann and Jörg Masurat, who's apparently missing a ring. I'm not sure if that's only visual, because it doesn't seem to affect his performance. One of the MGs going wide. It's super close here in the midfield. And Kimi Hapler involved in a collision with the BMW. I'm not sure if that was just too many cars in one spot or if that could have been avoided a bit better, but we are still side by side behind. The Audi of Leonard Smooth making it around the outside of Carsten Hermann, Kimi Hapler just behind them. And I think Ali Zaya is now putting a lot of pressure onto Enrico Bräuninger. If Julian Chico and Adria Jaldo also lurking in the background. Oh, and Cesco Monuera very wide in the last turn, nearly into the wall. But what a first lap here at Jeddah, right?
Yeah, it's chaos as it always seems to be the first lap in Jeddah. Kimi going up the inside into T1, getting squeezed a little bit on T2, trying to cut across to the inside. Can't quite get the power down though. A little bit of a wiggle on the back end of that Porsche.
Clearly the faster driver of the two, but you have to get past. And he is pushing for it.
We all know Kimi is hungry for an overtake when he feels like he should be in front. So maybe better idea here for Hermann would be just let him through. Just let him through, Hermann.
Right, is he trying to hang it around the outside? Yes, he can. He's cutting back to the inside. He's keeping it neat and tidy. And what a move by Kimi Hapala.
That was a fantastic move. Hermann just trying to carry a little bit too much speed through there and ran a little bit wide, and that opened the door for Kimi to cut across the inside.
Tell you what, move. I think that was one of the most beautiful moves we've seen here at Jeddah so far. Can Carsten Hermann come back at the Porsche, though he's in the slipstream? But I think Kimi has him covered coming into the final sector.
Yeah, I think Hermann pulled out a little bit too early there and just lost a bit of the overspeed he needed.
Cesco Monuera also back into 8th, so he seems to have settled into his rhythm now. Coming across the line, David Sorero leading by 5.2 seconds over Enrico, but he's got an AMG very close behind, and behind we can see Julian Chico having a Porsche very close behind.
Yeah, there's except for Sorero going off the front, which I think we all expected. There's some good battling in the top 10 for sure. A lot of cars fairly close together and still working out their positions on track, not caring that there's still 40 minutes left of the race.
Jaldo having a bit of a meet with the wall there, trying to get past the big BMW of Julian Chico. But things have settled a bit now after the first minutes. Of course, we have quite some gaps between a few cars.
Cesco Monuera currently in the pit lane.
Seems like the pace between the BMW and the AMG is fairly equal, but just spread across the track a bit. So Alizai isn't really able to reel in Schwiger, but he isn't also able to get away from the AMG. So it's always hovering around 9/10 to a second, depending on which part of the circuit you are on.
Yeah, Sector 1 advantage Zahir. He was about 0.2 of a second faster in Sector 1, but then lost out 2-3 of a second on Sector 2. So it does seem to be dependent on the part of the track. Let's see what he comes up with when he passes the line for Sector 3. But he does seem to have dropped back a little bit again.
Jaldo making a move in the last turn, getting all, well, slidey. And now coming into the pits, does he have a drive-through from the start?
He doesn't know. I can't see one.
Because I also didn't see one, so it's a bit weird for him to come into the pits. Maybe some damage he wants to get fixed. That leaves Kimi Hapler now to hunt down Julian Chico.
Made a bit of a mess aligning with his pit box, lost a couple of seconds there. He did have a repair your car message, but it's only 10 seconds of repairs. He left changing tyres on though, so it's going to be a long pit stop.
And you can see the pace of Kimi Hapler here. Getting super close in the Twitchy Twitchy Sector 1. I can't even talk anymore. Too much talking has been done. Now going to the inside. Is he going for the opposite move he did on Carsten Herrmann? Yes, he's locking Julian Chico out on the outside, high on the banking. And up into 4th place. Can Julian Chico get back into position? It doesn't seem like it.
He's sticking on his bumper though. He's not making it easy. Kimi running a little bit too wide there, having to concede the position again.
Couldn't quite see if there was contact between the two of them. It didn't quite look like it.
No, it was very close. There may have been a bit of contact. I'm not sure, pushing him a bit wide.
We sure know that Kimi Hapler is going to get another shot here. Alizai has dropped quite a bit of time. He's 2.3 seconds back from Schwigo now.
David Sobrero up front has our best lap of 2 minutes dead, 0.7. So that is impressively fast compared to the rest of the competition here. Now at 8.5 seconds clear.
Yeah, and it is another point to his name, of course. So currently he's on course to take the championship lead as well. Going into the second half of the season. Kimi Hapler again, very sideways out of the first chicane.
Yeah, he's maybe a little bit aggressive in his impatience to get up to Seiko and have another go, and just get in the back of that Porsche a little bit squirrely out some of the corners.
Well, he definitely has the pace to fight for a podium here, and every second he loses behind Julian Chico, he's gonna have a harder time catching up to Alizai and Schwigo. So he's again going for the inside. Chico got him covered this time around, keeping the momentum up high through the banking. They exit side by side yet again. But this time it's Chico who is leading into the next right-hander. But of course another good chance to come up for Kimi Hapler.
Porsche seems to have the exit speed over the BMW when he gets an equal run of things.
And we are still side by side. Who's braking later? Oh, and we've seen that situation before, and Julian Chico is round and into the wall. Bit of a squeeze by Kimi Hapler, maybe.
It was difficult to tell from the angle of the broadcast there. I wouldn't like to say either way.
It reminds me a bit of the situation that Kimi Hapler himself found himself in with another Porsche, that being driven by Rond and Hood at the time. I think it was in Season 6, where they also went into that turn side by side. It is a very, very tricky turn to go through side by side, in all fairness.
It is, yeah, and if you don't get left, I'm not saying you didn't, but if you don't get left enough room, there is a big honking wall in the way, which is not forgiving.
Meanwhile, Marcel Vollbracht in P8 trying to hunt down Chris John in P7. Both, I think, having very respectable race starts here. But currently, I think one of the surprises so far for me is definitely Carsten Herrmann. We've seen him in races before, we know that he has the pace, but currently running as high as P5, also past Julian Chico after his spin, of course. Could be a top 5 finish on the cards here for him.
And one of my favorite liveries. So.
Well, I'm certainly not biased because of the colors.
Well, talking a little bit about lap times, we've got Enrico Breuninger. In fact, his best lap is a 2:02.374. Ali Zahir 2:02.8. Kimi Hartler obviously had a bit of traffic so far, so he's currently only doing a 2:02.9. We'll see if he can improve on that. Now he's got some clear air ahead of him. But Hartler is just over 9 seconds back from Zahir, so he's got a lot of time to make up in the next 33 minutes of racing. So he's going to have to get a move on and get his foot to the floor.
Alisa seems to be struggling with the rears though, out of the final turn sideways. So maybe burned the rears a bit, trying to follow Enrico Breuninger in the opening stages of the race.
Been watching too many Fast and Furious movies.
Potentially as well, but the race has opened up a lot. I mean, we had the 4 cars within a second at the start, and potentially people decided to just drive into their rhythm now a bit more. Because especially at Jeddah, you don't really get much room, as Krystall is now coming into the pits, so maybe also for some damage. Doesn't seem like he does have a penalty. So yeah, Jeddah, of course, the track is your biggest enemy.
Yeah, and the walls, they're big hard things. There's not a lot you can do about those. He does have some damage. He's repairing 40 seconds of damage, so I'm assuming it's just not updating properly for us spectating.
It could be a lot of suspension damage, because in Jeddah, what you typically do on especially the exits of the final turns out of the first chicane, very easy to do, is tap the wall, and this can really mess up your suspension geometry, where you suddenly find yourself steering about 45 degrees to the left or right. And yeah, of course that loses your time and a lot of control over the car. Not what you want to do.
Yeah, having some messed up suspension linkages can lead to a slightly unnatural feel to the steering wheel, and also at high speeds it can suddenly fire you off in a random direction. So definitely not ideal situations for a race car. Hartler's last lap was his fastest lap of the race, which was 2:02.816. But still a little tiny bit slower than Ali Zahir and half a second slower than Enrico Breuninger in second. The gap starting to come down a little bit now, but it could be because of the kind of accordion effect that happens in the sectors, like we were talking earlier with the AMG and the Porsche.
And with some cars coming into the pits, you may also encounter some traffic, which of course will lead to people, just changing a bit in terms of lap times, having to slow down, having to wait for somebody else to come through first. Yeah, Masurat's still without a ring for some reason, but that might really just be a visual effect here currently on the spectator. He's currently hunting down Lennox Moves.
Wing or not, he seems to be making it work. Maybe it's the reduced drag strat of knock the wing off.
The interesting thing is we still have 2/3 left of the race, of course, so there's still quite some time. Kimi Hartler can find the pace, or if Ali Zahir maybe can't hold up his pace. So, yeah, that could be the deciding factor in the fight for the podium. And of course for these two, it's also for the higher positions in the standings, as we established earlier. They are a bit further down the order due to some mishaps in the first 2 races, but they could jump very high up the order with this very race.
Was Ali Zahir's fastest lap of the race, doing a 202.777, all of the sevens, which is a slight improvement for him. Not a lot, but he took a couple of tenths off his fastest lap.
Yeah, Ali Zahir now 5 seconds behind Trigo, who's driving some very good races here in RCL so far.
Yeah, he seems to have found his way to the top a little bit more now, after getting stuck in the Breuninger zone for a lot of races. He seems to be, although he's still in a bit of a Breuninger zone, 15 seconds, 16 seconds off Sobrero and 5 seconds ahead of Zahir. But at least it's at the front of the race.
Very much so indeed. Might actually be worth, now that you've been talking about him developing over the season, to take a look at what's next, because of course after Jeddah we will have Fuji and Monza coming up, both with very long straights. Fuji a bit more technical, one might argue, but yeah, I mean, these 2 tracks, something that he definitely knows, but so do many other people. And I'm very much looking forward to Fuji.
They're not exactly unpopular tracks, are they? Especially Monza. Name me a sim racing game that doesn't have Monza in it. Challenge. Fuji, maybe not as popular, but I prefer it as a circuit. I think it's got a good mix of corners in it, so it's a good test bed for a car.
And of course, then we will also have the community vote, which will open in a couple of weeks, which we will of course let you know on the Discord. So you get to vote one of 3 tracks to host the final race, which usually has yielded Road Atlanta as the result. But if it will be the case this time, we will see.
Should be. Personal opinion. Kimi Harpler doing his fastest lap of the race, a 202.676. Not quite as many sevens, but not all of the sixes. But he has taken a couple of tenths out of Ali Zahir there.
Well, he will probably get a good laugh out of that lap time. But
that's true.
Yeah, there's of course some just on accident question in chat. What does RRT mean? And this has definitely not been asked by the founder of RRT. Of course, if you want to know anything about our RENNSPORT team tags that we use, such as GST, NGSRT, or RRT, all having some drivers in this race, then make sure to check out the Discords and the Discord team section. Or just ask in any chat. Anybody will always be there to help you out on that. But yeah, it's the... Was it regular RENNSPORT team?
I think it's RENNSPORT regulars team.
I will double check this. Regulars RENNSPORT team. Yes, indeed. So some people that have been with us for a long, long time. Ali Zahir, of course, also one of them. Tim Schroeder, who's not driving here today. Dominic Ladler and Mark Heworth, who of course are leading the championship at the moment, are also part of that team. And yeah, all of them have become very fast drivers as well.
Does adding RRT to your name give you 50 brake horsepower bonus? I couldn't say.
I think it should. Of course, also have some NGSRT members in the live chat, which is very nice to see. NGS, of course, standing for Night Gaming Studios, and RT, well, Racing Team. Also, I think one of our first teams, and at some point one of the biggest.
Yeah, that rings a bell. I'll go with that. Maserati here, really closing up on Muth ahead of him. It's Xbox versus PlayStation battle.
Well, Audi vs BMW is also interesting, seeing how close they are together on the map.
That's true. BMW not even needing a wing to battle against an Audi here today, though. Downforce be damned.
Always nice to see the Ferris wheel here on the inside. I mean, of course, my bias has to say the Nürburgring one is nicer, but if you ignore that one, it definitely is a very nice sight to see.
We do have 3 Ferris wheels here in RENNSPORT, the other one being at Daytona, so that it seems like that should be the vote for the at some point one of the community votes for track. Which of the Ferris wheel tracks do you want to race at?
That is a very, very good call. Although I haven't checked all the tracks, but some may have it more hidden. But of course it's the most prominent on these 3 tracks. But yeah, I will keep them in mind.
Quite a lot of the tracks also, if you go into free camera mode, have go-kart tracks. Unfortunately, we can't race at those.
I think our cars may have a little issue turning through those, but yeah, of course, in Spa you drive right past it out of Savilo. You also have the rallycross track somewhere there.
Yeah. I think there's a rallycross track at Hockenheim as well, isn't there?
Yes. But that is pretty much fully integrated into the track, same for Nürburgring. So it's not a separate part they drive on.
Yeah.
Has seen some very great finishes in the 2010s. And Carsten Hermann Carr is in the pit lane. Interesting. So he will drop down the order just when we're getting up into P9 then.
Herman doing a little bit of repairs himself. Not a bad stop in the pit box. He was pretty much bang on. And he'll be coming off the air jacks now, and away he goes.
Maybe that should give some points as 1 point fastest pit stop.
Or at least the most aligned to the pit box.
If we ever need to get creative, I think we don't run out of ideas. But it seems like Maserati has a bit of an issue now following the Audi, because the gap has grown to 1.5 seconds again, or 1.2 seconds now out of the turn.
Yeah, Muth had his... Well, it wasn't his fastest lap, so it must have been invalid, but he did do a fast lap last lap. He got a couple of tenths quicker than Maserati. So a little bit of cheeky off-track action.
Well, the interesting thing every time about the fight between an Audi and a BMW, of course, is how different these cars are to drive. So there's a bit of a mistake here for Lennox Smooth. Because the Audi, you really have to V-shape the corner, you have to throw the car in, make the front axle bite, get it rotated. I definitely drive too much in this car. But yeah, the BMW pretty much the polar opposite. You want to roll it into the corner, you want to use its stability and predictability out of the turn. So you kind of have a hard time fighting one another because you always have to anticipate what the other driver is doing. The Porsche is also similar to the Audi, but not as extreme.
Yeah, you'd kind of think from the outside that overtaking one of the Audis where they do have to dive into a corner and kind of V-shape it off a little more would give you a bit of an opening to get through, but it's not quite that extreme, so it doesn't open you up for kind of an inside blocking maneuver. And it can definitely throw off the rhythm of the driver behind, which can make overtaking them a bit tricky, even though it is a dinky little car compared to the rest of them.
One thing we maybe should add as information, because we still have 11 out of 13 cars driving in this race, is that of course there's also a second split which you can watch over by the app. So if you go into the app and to contests and then select the first contest there, which is this very race, you can select split 2 and you will see that currently leading in there is Stefan Löchel in the BMW M4 with Tony Thomas, who's also a very regular driver here in RENNSPORT. Currently in second in the McLaren, Michael G in third. So yeah, still a lot of action going on in there as well.
Yeah, it's great to have more than one split of the races going on. It means that, for one thing, the top split is a little bit closer together as far as driver pace is concerned. But it does mean that we don't get to show some of our more regular guys who get relegated to the second split. And I'm sure there's some pretty good action going on there too.
Marcel Vollbart currently running in 6th. I think that may be one of his best results so far, if he can keep it for the last third of the race.
Bräuninger just putting in his best lap of the race, doing a 2:02.078. It was nearly a second quicker than Zahir's last lap, so he's really stretching out that gap now, finding his footing with the BMW.
David Subaru seems to be waiting at the end of the start-finish straight.
Oh, no, he's moving again now.
Driving. So
yeah, there was maybe a little network oops for a second there, but he seems to have carried on.
Kimi Hapler really has a hard time closing in on Alizar, which is interesting, seeing how the pace of that Porsche was magnificent at the opening part of the race, and also in quali. I mean, he started on the front row after all, but it seemed to have died down a bit, or maybe he overpushed, collected some damage in the traffic.
Maybe, yeah. He's just set his own fastest lap, a 2:02.695. Unfortunately, Ali Zahir going about a tenth quicker, doing a 2:02.5. No, I'm reading the wrong lines on my sheet. That's Enrico Bräuninger and Ali Zahir. Kimi did a 2:03.4. But yeah, he does seem to have. We saw him doing a couple of turns earlier on in the race where he was back end was stepping out a little bit, and he's maybe just burnt the tyres a little bit early on, and it's just not letting him get quite as much pace out of it. I'm trying to keep an eye on his steering wheel, and it looks fairly straight, so I don't think he's got much in the way of suspension damage, if at all.
And David Subaru has dropped down to P5. Not quite sure what happened there.
He seems to be having some issues, doesn't he? He's kind of springing around the track a little bit.
We'll get to that in a bit. That of course now means that Schwigo is currently our race leader. Maybe it will sort itself out in just a bit. But yeah, very, very odd issue.
Because he does seem to be on track. He's a lap behind everyone ahead of him, so he does seem to have lost a lap somewhere. Try to investigate.
We will of course also sort that out after the race, as long as with the second split. And he's closing in on J.Skill who now in P8. As he's having a hard hit into the ball notes. So there seem to be some connection issues David Sobrero is experiencing. It doesn't seem to affect any of the other drivers. Schögo is closing in on Carsten Herrmann to put a lap onto the Aston Martin. Should be an easy move here for the German to get past the other German. David Sobrero has moved past J.Skill. And of course there is a bit of irony here with Enrico putting a lap onto an Aston Martin, as rightly said by the leader of the NGS RT team in our Twitch chat. And Lennox Moosh is suddenly under threat from Maserati, but also up into P5. But he got that BMW very, very close behind him. They are this high because Marcel Vollbracht has dropped down the order. Now the BMW is going towards the outside. Can he make the move stick? No, not quite yet. And now of course the differences of the cars even play into each driver's hands even more, if you know how to extract the most out of them. Still 10 minutes on the clock, so he should be able to take it a bit easier. The Audi going very wide into the long left-hander. Using it a bit as a slingshot, but didn't really gain him time. He's still under threat from Jörg Maserati. And a good exit here from the BMW. Can he make a move? But do you really want to make a move into the upcoming left-hander? Because that's where Kimi Hapler and Julian Chicot had a bit of a clash. Seems like he is going for it, but he is backing out beforehand.
No, he gave him plenty of room in the end, didn't he?
Yeah, indeed. David Sobrero is also only 4 seconds back from this fight. Very crucial exit here. Mood going as far to the inside as possible, trying to cover it. So Masuat doesn't have the chance to go there. Oh, but Masuat faking it, going down the inside. There is contact, but it is a great move. It was a great attempt by Masuat, but in the end, very well covered by the Audi.
Yeah, he just couldn't quite make it stick around the outside of the next corner there, but it was a great fake move by Masuat there. Pretty clean as well.
Look how close David Sobrero is. Of course, we will have to take a look after the event why he dropped a lap down. But he is making his move past the BMW.
The BMW just seemed to move over and let him through there, so... Oop. And then Sobrero connection things.
Something definitely seems to be going on with his internet here. Which of course isn't easy for the other drivers to anticipate.
No, that's for sure. Nope, doing a bit of a NASCAR move there. There's another connection problem.
With that, he's past the Audi, who's going a bit wide. So Mood just slightly misjudging the braking here with the AMG in front.
Probably wanting to give him as much space as possible, really, given the way Sobrero's car is acting on track right now.
Let's have another fight between Carsten Herrmann and Marcel Vollbracht for P10. And Chris John in the BMW is also not far up the road. So the last few minutes in here definitely getting a bit more interesting. And Marcel Vollbracht not really getting a good exit here. They exit side by side. The next one is a right-hander, but Carsten Herrmann already in front of the AMG. Before coming to that position. And Jörg Masuat into the pits. So maybe some damage he collected in that fight with David Sobrero.
He was showing his need repairs before Sobrero came up to him, so he was maybe collected a few lumps and bumps. And maybe the pit crew can put another wing back on his car.
You know, Kimi Harpler is also having a look at the Discord chat. Which, while driving, yes, you can do. I've done that before as well. Is not recommended, though.
He's got 50 seconds clear to Julian Secure right now, so at least pull over and do it, Kimi.
Be a good role model. But it also seems like Alizar is slowly catching Shuigo here. 8.4 seconds. That one has been bigger before.
Yeah, the last lap round, he was a little bit quicker. On fastest lap, the gap between Shuigo and Zahir is pretty small. It's only a tenth and a half. So that they are on practically the same pace. But they have been driving for 40 minutes now, so maybe a little bit of concentration issues coming in.
Carsten Herrmann now only 7/10 back from Chris John. He was in the pits later, so he was one of the drivers that came in. Technically has a tire advantage here. And 4 minutes left on the clock. It should be very tight whether we drive 2 or 3 laps, but it should be 2 because Enrico just has started his lap as the timer reached 4 minutes with the lap time brought here. 4 minutes 2, 4 minutes 3. He may actually be able to decide whether we drive one more lap or not.
Yeah, he's got a little window back to Elizar here to make a choice, depending where he lines up on the finish line.
Carsten Hermann with a clean dive down the inside. And Krystall losing the rears out of the final turn, trying to basically make a bit of a slingshot move.
Yeah, that BMW can be a bit of a beast on the accelerator coming out of corners if you push it a little bit too hard.
Alizai easily going down the inside of Jörg Masurat here, because that is a lap between the two drivers. Seems like for Kimi Hapler it will be the steward's decision in the end, deciding whether he will have the podium or not.
Yeah, we'll have to do a bit of a review work on the race before we can give away the final positions. Unfortunately. Seems to have been a little bit of a hiccup, but we will have to check on the details before we say too much.
But for now it looks like Enrico Bräuninger is at least taking home the victory on track. I think if you had a chart where you see all the positions gained and lost, you will have a very, very well mixed up sheet, because in the end Cesco Monero, who was very far down the order at one point, is currently up into P7. Julian Chico was also, and Kimi Hapler was spun around after the first turn, is up into P3. So lots of movements in terms of position.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a pretty wild race as far as comeback races is concerned. And the cars have spread out fairly early and kind of got into the road rhythm of things. There's not been as much kind of immediate on-track action, but there's definitely been a lot of people shuffling positions throughout the 45 minutes of it.
And it looks like it's Enrico Bräuninger once again. Comes across the line in first in about half a lap. Again, after really chaotic race, just like his first RCL victory in Spa.
Yep, for sure. I think he can come away fairly proud of his performance here. He's got a good gap to Ali Zahir, nearly 10 seconds at the end of the race. So he's definitely had good pace there.
Now, does he decide to drive another lap for the sake of it, or does he end it here? I think he will have the choice. 15 seconds left on the clock.
I don't know if he'd actually get a choice. I'm not sure he'll get to the start-finish line.
It doesn't seem like it. Or maybe he backed off before, but whatever the case, Enrico Bräuninger is coming across the line in first on paper. Of course, news on this will be posted on the Discord once a decision has been reached. Alizar coming home in second. Behind him, it's the BMW of Jörg Masurat, but he's a lap down. And then it's Kimi Hapler. What a race it has been for him. He probably made the most moves this race.
Yeah, probably. He had the most on-track action, I think.
Carsten Hermann Carr somewhere lost his ring on that last lap, but he will come home in 9th. Marcel Vollbracht in 10th.
Julian Sacco is oh, he looks fine on your screen, but on mine screen he's missing a front bumper.
Well, he of course had that impact after the clash with Kimi onto the wall, so that's where he picked up the front left damage. Still, P4 after that, very respectable finish for the Polish man. And some good points indeed, and these will help him to go up in the standings a bit more.
Yep, for sure.
Then it's David Sobero 5th on track. We will see what it will be, well, in the final results. Lennox Mood also with a lot of body parts missing. And the last contract is Cesco Moreira, but he's still finishing in 7th. Well, I think a good recovery for him after that very chaotic first lap that he got shuffled down by.
Yeah, I think he could be pretty happy with that. He did a pretty decent race. His pace wasn't bad, so I think he can come away with that looking fairly happy with himself.
Well, let's have a look at the provisional standings in the championship. Of course, we also have the second split still to come into the picture. And it's David Sobero, whatever the case is, leading the championship, currently 5 points ahead of Schwego. Then it's 4 RRT drivers, Mark Hewitt, Kimi Hapler, Dominic Ladler and Ali Zaher, all within 5 points of each other. Cesco Moreira in 7th, not only on track here today, but also in terms of the championship. So a good position for him and not too far away from the rest of the drivers. Luciano Caso still in 8th, Rasta P9, Blanco P10, Tim Schroeder in 11th, and Jörg Maswart with his race today, and some previous results in P12. Let's also have a quick look at P13 to P24, which is led by Mikhail Kofal on 17 points. There we also see Julian Chicot, who bagged his first few points in this race. So yeah, definitely a lot of people with a lot of potential after this race. And
yeah,
yeah.
And I think we were talking about Cesco Moreira being 7th. He does seem to turn up kind of every race, and he maybe doesn't like wow people with top end results, but he does turn up for every event and bag some points. So it's good to see him like clawing his way up the table.
Indeed. But with all that said, I think it's time for us to say goodbye for the night. Next week we will go to the Nordschleife for the last streamed event of the year, at least on the official community side, with the GT3X in RNL Round 3, something I've been looking forward to a lot. So yeah, I'd say join the Discord, join the action, and until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.